Hello guys, my name is Anna and I'm a Ukrainian, and I have decided I will vlog daily from my country Ukraine since the start of this awful war with Russia. And in my daily videos I try to update you on the important real life situations in my country Ukraine, and of course I'm always glad to answer your questions and to clarify some facts from our history, culture, background or whatever interests you. And today I want to speak about the reaction of Russian men on the new Putin's order on mobilization. And perhaps this is the first time in history when I agree with Putin's press secretary Peskov that this reaction is hysterical and demonstrates too much fear. Well, millions of photos on the internet show us huge, enormous queues of Russians who try to escape their country. At the airports, on the customs, crossing the border with countries that have visa-free regime for Russians. And there are many and many men. If you compare that to the start of the full-scale war in Ukraine, you will see we also had huge queues of Ukrainian men and women, but just the contrary, they were standing to military offices trying to get mobilized, to join territorial defense, to join the Ukrainian armed forces, and to be useful for the protection of the land. So here we see the very first conceptual difference between Ukrainians and Russians. Ukrainians did not want this war, but we realize what and why we are fighting for. We protect our motherland, we want to stop Putin's regime, and we realize that today's Russia is a threat to the planet in general. Russians do not understand what they are fighting for, but they felt comfortable accepting what that government offers them. It is a tradition in Russia to always agree with dictators, not to ask questions and not to protest. So they did not care much about war in Ukraine. Many of you were telling me about those good Russians that protest, and well, I ignored these comments. Why? Because the number of these good Russians is very, very limited. And if you compare it with the general population, it is less than 1%. So these people do not decide anything. And in total, the population of Russia, not the civil society of Russia, because they look like just population of Russia, is very passive, traumatized, and traditionally supports dictators like Stalin, today Putin. And during this 6-7 months, they did not protest against war. Everything went fine. On various interviews, they were saying either they don't want to talk about that, or they hope this will end one day, or in the majority of cases, they demonstrated support to the special military operation in Ukraine. And now when time comes to participate in this special military operation that they so much support, we don't see many people who are willing to do that. And this demonstrates another fact about Russians. They are covered. Maybe even those of them who believe Ukraine must be erased from the face of the planet, must be demilitarized and denazified, they are still afraid to come and do it here. The number of people who will be mobilized grow with each day. And it seems to me that today it was revealed that 1.2 million people will be needed for the Russian armed forces, which also demonstrate tremendous losses in their army and perhaps terrifies those young men who want to escape mobilization. Another thing is that this protest that appear from city to city should not make you happy or proud or even hopeful about the Russian society, because they are not fighting against war. They are not fighting for peace. They are protesting against mobilization, not against war in Ukraine. It is so very important to understand. Many Russian online influencers, they even speak about that. So we protest against mobilization, but not against war in Ukraine or special military operation in Ukraine. So it has to do not with the Russian understanding that something goes really wrong. The children should not be killed because they speak other language. that an independent country should not be occupied. No, they are just afraid that strong Ukrainian armed forces, supported by allies and well trained to use foreign weapons, will kill them. We will, because we don't have other choice. We do not cross the border. We do not come to Russian villages to kill their people. We protect our own land, and there is a question: what are you doing here? Why are you coming here? And why your I don't know how to call him, General Ork, wants to send 1.2 million people to die here in the soils of Ukraine, to stay here forever. And they protest only against these dangers. They realize that we are winning, they realize that we are a strong enemy, and they perhaps realize that it was a mistake to start war with Ukraine, but at the same time they do not protest against this war. They protest just against mobilization. And this is very typical of Russian society and very characteristic. So please, once again, when you think about good Russians, realize they are not protesting against war. And what is more important, they demonstrate they can protest, they can organize meetings, they can write posters, but not anti-war posters, not pro-democratic posters, but only those that will save their skin, will save their bones from being fertilizers in Ukraine. And I'm very, very disappointed with that. And I hope that Russian society is also disappointed with itself when they see what is happening on their streets. Moreover, together with sanctions, perhaps they will become poorer, because these changes that were made by Putin in Russian legislation allow him to spend more money on military budget, and perhaps they will have close to like plus 40% or 43% that they will be allowed, of budget that they will be allowed to spend on military things. So Russians will become poorer and poorer when this huge expenses on military budget will be combined with sanctions and Russia's isolation. And all of that looks really sad. And I think this is like the start of the mobilization, is the start of Russia's end. Of course, they will apply shrewd strategy, and according to some hidden laws and decrees, they will try to take soldiers to mobilize men and maybe women, but in the majority of cases men. They will try to mobilize them on the territories that are depressive, that don't have normal media coverage, and these will be depressive small villages somewhere in the east, far east of Russia. Not, of course, not from Petersburg, not from Moscow, because they are afraid to make people angry in those cities that are visible, that have some culture of protesting. And this also shows awful inequality and extremely bad treatment to people and to different peoples that live on the territory of Russia. And once again, I want to stress it here. And for me, this one of the best ways to finish this war is to inspire independence of so many beautiful states that can be formed on the territory of Russia, like Siberia, like Yakutia, and many, many others. Maybe this totally dishonest mobilization and utilization of young men from depressive regions that are far away from Russia and not so active on media and the internet will demonstrate to the people who live in those regions that they are not valued and not respected by their own government. And that is also an important sign. So all of these protests remind me the time when sanctions started and so many YouTube vloggers, Russian YouTube vloggers, were not talking about something in Ukraine. They were only talking about empty shop windows, demonstrating that brands are leaving and now eating in those substitutes of McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and all of that. So what they care about is their consumerism and ability to sit on a couch and continue watching TV, and they do not care about global things. They don't care about awful crimes that chosen by them government and supported by them government and army commit daily, and they believe this will not touch and ruin their life. But it is always like that. If you're doing something really bad, it returns back. And this is what we see right now. And we see fear in the eyes of those men standing in queues and trying to escape their motherland, the motherland that calls them to a war, which is no more a military operation for Russians, but a war that they are actively losing. Thank you for your support. I want to encourage you to watch our new series, Soviet Myths Debunked, where we talk about various Soviet myths that still fuel Russian military machine. Thank you for becoming my patrons. Thank you for buying me coffee. And most importantly, thank you for the support that you demonstrate to Ukraine, and Slava Ukraini!